All right, how's everybody doing today? Hotep, hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Thursday, August 18th, 2022, and we are live. Just popping on for a few minutes here to tell you about the online course that I teach, normally on Saturdays, but we're doing a special session here on Thursday. We're going to do it. It's going to start about 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to start in a few minutes as soon as I get finished with this broadcast. We're going to do another session of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And we deal with thousands of years and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. So in last class we dealt with some of the history of the Moors, going into the Iberian Peninsula that they know as Spain and Portugal, 711 AD, and they go in under General Tarif in 710 AD, and then General Tariq Ibn Ziyad goes in 711 AD and conquers the southern portion of the Iberian Peninsula. So in today's class, we're going to get into more dealing with Christopher Columbus. We'll talk some more about the Moors. We'll deal some more with Christopher Columbus and why Columbus set sail on his four voyages August 3rd, 1492, when he set sail on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. We'll continue this history chronologically. We go through and look at thousands of years of history, and we look at this history chronologically, and we see what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. Last class we talked about General Tariq Ibn Ziyad. We talked about Saint Maurice, and we dealt with the origin of the word Moor, and we dealt with the word Maurice. It also is in reference to a Moorish boy. We talked about Mauritania meaning land of black-skinned people. We dealt with how Saint Maurice became a patron saint to Germany as well, when his troops refused to kill Christians. So we dealt with a lot of this history here, and we also talked about the national flags of Corsica and Sardinia that have the African Moors heads on them also, okay, and why they have those African Moors heads on them. We're going to, when we look at Christopher Columbus, it's important to understand that Columbus never came to the land that we call the United States of America. The closest he came here is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. And we know that Columbus was also using nautical instruments that the Moors are going to, based upon technology, the Moors are going to introduce into Europe as well, okay? So everything we taught the Europeans came back to kick us in the behind. And when you look at where Columbus went on his four voyages, he goes into the Bahamas, or what he calls San Salvador, August 3rd, 1492. We know this is late in the same year that the Moors lose control of their last stronghold in Spain, which is Granada, January 2nd, 1492. And he also goes into Cuba and Hispaniola. We know the western portion, the western third of the island of Hispaniola is where you have the Haiti, okay, the Haiti. And we know the French are going to take control of Haiti in 1697 from the Spanish. And we know you're going to have the Haitian Revolution that starts in 1791. And then in the second class that I teach, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Normally we teach that class on Sundays. In that class, we deal with the Haitian Revolution and the Louisiana Purchase, because those two events are connected, okay? September 1493, Columbus goes into the West Indies and Boricuan or Puerto Rico. He goes into Jamaica in 1494. We know the British are going to take control of Jamaica from the Spanish, and you're going to have in the 1800s, you're going to have Queen Nanny and the Jamaican Maroons fighting against the British. Third voyage, May 1498. He goes into Trinidad and Venezuelan mainland, South America. Fourth voyage in 1504, his fourth and last voyage, 1504, he goes into Panama and Honduras. Okay. So the closest Columbus comes to this land is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. And the contract that he had with Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain allowed him to keep 10% of whatever riches he found, along with the noble title of along with the noble title and the governorship of any lands he should encounter. That title was Admiral of the Ocean Seas. Admiral of the Ocean Seas. Now, according to Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book "The First Americans Were Africans: Documented Evidence," who's a friend of mine, I've interviewed him probably, I think, about 13, 14 times, something like that. In his book, "The First Americans Were African: Documented Evidence," he talks about how 70% of the people Columbus encountered on his 4 voyages were African people, because African people were already in the Caribbean even before Europeans got there. Africans were already there in some of those island nations. Now, Bartholomew de las Casas, who travels with Columbus on some of his voyages, Right Reverend Bishop Bartholomew de las Casas, who is going to be instrumental in Africans only being, or Africans exclusively being enslaved by the Spanish. He estimated that Columbus was responsible for the murder of 12 million to 25 million indigenous people. 12 million to 25 million indigenous people. Okay. So in our next class, we're going to look at some excerpts of Christopher Columbus and the African Holocaust, Slavery and the Rise of European Capitalism by Dr. John Henry Clark. As well. That's one of the books that we reference in the class. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in the class. We show you those excerpts usually of the books. Okay, so we go through and look at thousands of years of history. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. And this is just a very, very short timeline of history. There's a much more extensive timeline of history that we look at that looks at thousands of years of history. But we look at 1419, Prince Henry, the navigator of Portugal, begins sending expeditions to explore the West African coast. 1441, right around 1441, actually. Some sources say 1444, others say 1441. Portugal starts to buy Africans from West Africa and establishes the first leg of what becomes known as the triangular trade. And the triangular trade is really formulated by Great Britain when Great Britain gets involved in the transatlantic slave trade in 1562 with Sir John Hawkins. And you're going to have Anton Gonzalez, who's Portuguese, who basically, we look at the start of the transatlantic slave trade with him going into Mauritania in 1441. The doctrine of discovery or dum diversas, 1452. The papal bull of 1455. The Pope addresses Spain and Portugal and tells them, "I now order you to reduce to servitude all infidel people." 1482, we see Christopher Columbus involved in the transatlantic slave trade in 1482, 10 years before he set sail on his first of 4 voyages. We see the Moors losing control of Grenada, January 2nd, 1492. Then we also look at 1494, the Treaty of Tordesillas of 1494 as well. So these are all very important historical dates. June 7, 1492, the Treaty of Tordesillas. 1502, Spain, right around 1502, the Spanish started importing African slaves to the Caribbean islands. And they've conquered African Moors and enslaved some of them. Some of those African Moors are being shipped into some of these Caribbean islands that the Spanish are controlling. Remember, the Portuguese are the first ones involved in the transatlantic slave trade. The Spanish are the second ones involved. 1517, Bartolome de las Casas suggests that Africans be made slaves exclusively. He says that the Native Americans have suffered enough and that they should exclusively enslave the African people. He talks about saving the souls of Native Americans. And then we know that King Charles V is going to sign in 1518. King Charles V signs what's known as the Asiento de Negros, or the Asiento for short, which was a license issued by Spain to slave traders and slave trader nations, to give them a license, to give them the authority to provide the Spanish colonies with African captives, with African slaves. And what they and this allowed for direct routes, direct voyages from Africa to the Spanish colonies, as opposed to them having to stop in Spain first. Also, the Asiento de Negros, which really expands the transatlantic slave trade and increases the need for enslaved African people as well. Okay, so these are just a few of the things. This is normally a 10-week online class, but this time around we're going to do at least 12 classes, probably 13 classes. We'll do this time around. And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So as soon as you register, you can watch the other classes we've done. The classes regularly $130 is on sale $60. We have the link here in the thread of the broadcast. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. So what's a papal bull? Some people may ask the question, what's a papal bull? So in Roman Catholicism, a papal bull is an official letter or document. The name is derived from the lead seal, bulla, B-U-L-L-A, the lead seal, traditionally affixed to such documents. Since the 12th century Common Era AD, it has designated a letter from the Pope carrying a bulla that shows the heads of the apostles, Peter and Paul, on one side of the Pope's signature, on one side, and the Pope's signature on the other side. So this is what a papal bull is. Okay, it's an official letter or document coming from the Pope. So we're going to see how all this evolves, and we see how this is connected to ancient Kemet, and the Moors take the teachings from ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, into Europe. We know that George G.M. James in the book Stolen Legacy talked about how the Moors were the custodians of the ancient Egyptian mystery system, and they take these teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and they bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. Okay, also you have the we see that the Moors are going to Africanize Europe to various extents. They're taking the science, the mathematics, they're taking the architecture, the medicine, they're taking the arts, they're taking the musical instruments, all this into Europe. Okay, the Moors' ancestors were known as the Garamantes. These were Black African people living throughout North Africa. Hannibal Barca, who we talked about earlier in the class, Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general, and the Carthaginians are descendants of the Phoenicians. Hannibal Barca was Garamanti, as well as St. Augustine. Okay, so we're going to see how all this history comes together, how all these historical figures that we've heard about during different periods of history come together. We'll look at different African civilizations, whether it's Axum, whether it's Numidia, which existed from about 202 BC to 46 BC. We look at the Great Zimbabwe as well, ancient city of Great Zimbabwe, in other African civilizations also. Definitely Carthage, that's extremely important. Looking at Carthage, which was destroyed by Rome in 146 BC. You have the three Punic Wars that we talk about in the class as well. So we go through history and we look at all these different aspects of history. Look at this chronologically. There are over 200 slides in the class. So over 50 articles that I reference. We have video clips, book references, articles. One of the things we deal with in the class is, why is Christmas celebrated on December 25th? And this was a book that I saw at CVS Pharmacy in 2011 called The Life of Christ. The Life of Christ rediscovering how his life, death, and resurrection changed the world, right? And if you read if you read Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson, if you read The World's 16 Crucified Saviors by Kersey Graves, it gets into a lot of this information. On page 55 of this book, this is why I spent $12 for this book, because of the information they're dropping on page 55. And this ties into the lectures that I've done dealing with the origins of Christmas and why is Christmas celebrated on December 25th, things like this, right? I've done a 3-hour lecture dealing with Ancient Kemet, the winter solstice, and the history of Christmas. It says on page 55, it says, in Christianity's early years, people debated when Jesus' birthday should be celebrated. Some Christians were against observing it at all, as they did not want Jesus compared. They did not want Jesus compared to Pharaoh. And they don't say which Pharaoh. Pharaoh is a title, not a name. Pharaoh or Nasubiti is a title, not a name. Pharaoh and Herod, whose birthdays were commemorated. But in the 4th century Common Era, Pope Julius I made it official. Christ's birth would be celebrated on December 25th. Okay, and that was actually it's about 432, right around 432 or so, Common Era, that Pope Julius I declares that Christmas be celebrated on December 25th. Okay, and then later he's going to state that Jesus' birthday is December 25th. Okay, now what I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you disagree with it or don't like it does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's 345 Common Era. Pope Julius I decrees that Jesus' birthday is December 25th. Okay, but he had no evidence to base this upon. Now, I have the book here somewhere. Hold on. Yeah. What the hell is it? Okay. This is okay, I've got it around here somewhere, the birth of Christ, but let's continue because I have the new one that they put out for Easter. This new one, I got, it was March of this year. Okay, the resurrection of Jesus. Okay, so the December 25th was already considered the birthday of the Son, not the S-O-N, but the S-U-N. Okay, once again, what I say may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you never heard it before, disagree with it, or don't like it does not mean it's not true. It just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. All right. Okay. And if you go to history.com, which is the official website of the History Channel, and just search for Christmas, December 25th, things like this, they have some information there to corroborate what I'm talking about. If you read Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson, which is one of the books we reference in the class, there's a ton of information to corroborate what I'm talking about. Okay. Also, I encourage you to read Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango's book, African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide, book 1 and book 2. African People and European Holidays and Mental Genocide, book 1 and book 2 by Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango. You'll see all this stuff largely comes from Africa and it's been co-opted by other cultures, and they've reinterpreted, put their ethnicity on it and the names of their ancestors, things like this, and represent it to the world as if they created it themselves. Okay. All right. So very quickly here, then I have to teach this class. How do you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like. You can register for this class. It's regularly $130, on sale $60. As soon as you register, there's a ton of archive content that you can start watching as well. Okay. So let me continue here. December 25th was already considered the birthday of the sun, not the SON, but the SUN, using the technology available at the time. Ancient astronomers observed that on December 25th, the days started getting longer again. They recognized the date as the winter solstice, when the sun is born again each year. So this deals with astronomy. What determines when Christmas is celebrated is based upon astronomy. The winter solstice occurs. During December 22nd, 23rd, 24th. And December 20th, December 21st, the sun moves into its lowest position. And on December 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, the sun appears not to move. So it says the sun stands still, okay, or the sun is dead for 3 days. And on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree northward, and each subsequent day, starting on December 25th, and each subsequent day, there's more and more sunlight. Okay, so December 25th in ancient times was looked at as the birthday of the Son of God, not the SON, but the SUN, or the rebirth of the sun. This is based upon astronomy. Okay, so December 25th was already considered the birthday of the sun, the SUN. Using the technology available at the time, ancient astronomers observed that on December 25th, the days started getting longer again. December 25th, the days started getting longer again. They recognized the date as the winter solstice. And solstice basically means sun stands still. That's what winter solstice means in Latin. Sun stands still. When the sun is born again each year. The Romans celebrated the birthday of the deity or the god Sol Invictus, S-O-L. That prefix Sol, S-O-L, means sun. Sol Invictus, which means unconquered sun. The Romans celebrated the birthday of of Sol Invictus on December 25th. The day was also recognized as the birthday of the deity Mithra, okay, the sun deity Mithra amongst the Persians, okay, and as the birthday of the deity Attis, the agricultural god Attis in Asia Minor. By choosing December 25th as the birthday of Yeshua, because the letter J did not exist until 1630 AD. Okay, look at the letter J in the dictionary, especially an etymological dictionary. It takes you back to the Hebrew Yeshua with the Y, because the letter J didn't exist until 1630 AD. The letter J is derived from the letter I. So by choosing December 25th, the church avoided upsetting the masses. No one wanted their festivals canceled. So the church simply combined this new Christian holiday with pagan traditions. Okay. So this is from page 55 of The Life of Christ, put out by the American Bible Society. This is the 2011 edition, put out by the American Bible Society and distributed by Time Life Books, Time Home Entertainment. All right. So they came out with a new edition, not the singing group New Edition. They came out with a new edition, The Resurrection of Jesus. Now, this was in time for Easter, okay, Easter, and Easter celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon following the vernal equinox. This is what determines when Easter is celebrated, based upon the Gregorian calendar introduced in about 1583, coming out of the Third Council of Trent, which is about 1582. Because it was the Third Council of Trent that determined they were trying to recalculate when to celebrate Easter. So they determined that Easter would be celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon following the vernal equinox. And they had to redo the calendar and introduce the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is based upon how long it takes the Earth to rotate counterclockwise around the sun. It takes 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and about 46 seconds. That's your solar year. Okay. That's how long it takes the Earth to rotate around the sun counterclockwise. So they moved from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. That was a result of the Third Council of Trent of 1582 AD, which was one of those 21 ecumenical councils that changed the way, changed how Christianity was practiced and what people were taught, what they believed when it came to Christianity, going back to the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. Now, what's interesting here in this one, the resurrection of Jesus, which came out in this came out in 2022, came out this year, 2022. They have a section here because they've been getting backlash. I know they've been getting backlash because of what they put in the 2011 edition that deals with the life of Christ. Because in the next edition of the life of Christ, that information on page 55, they took out of there. Okay, the information was correct, but a lot of people can't handle the truth. So what they did, so what they have here in this one, page 67, is they have this little inset right here. It says pagan mythology. It says pagan mythology and resurrection, the differences. So they have to address it because I know they've been getting so much backlash, and I've been using these sources that they put out to really expose what's going on. The videos of me going back to like 2011. I did one. I spoke with one of my teachers, Professor Kabahai Kamane. We did a lecture together in was that Washington D.C. something like 2012. But it says pagan mythology and resurrection, the differences. Okay, so they reference Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. And we deal with all this in the 12-week online history class as well. And take all this back to ancient Kemet and show you the relationship between ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, the Nile Valley region of Africa. We show you the relationship between that and the United States and the formation of the United States and the founding fathers, because 50 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Freemasons. Okay, so they say it has become commonplace to argue that Jesus's resurrection is simply one more example of a common motif in ancient mythology in which a hero dies and rises again. Advocates of this position point to parallels between Jesus and the Greek gods Attis and Adonis, or the Egyptian gods Horus and Osiris. Okay, well, really, Yeshua, and the story of Yeshua is a combination of the story of Asar, the father, who you see depicted here in the middle, who the Greeks called Osiris, and Horus, Heru, who the Greeks called Horus. Okay, it's really a combination of both, because Heru wasn't the one who was resurrected. Is Asar, or Osiris, who's resurrected after he was killed by his brother Set. His brother Set killed him and cut up his body into 14 pieces. 13 of the pieces were recovered by Osset, okay, or Isis, and the 14th piece was the phallus, the penis, which was not recovered. So this is why the Tekken, or the obelisk, is erected, okay, to represent resurrection and to represent that 14th piece of Asar's body that was not found. Okay, so it's going to be Heru, who avenges the death of his father and kills his uncle Set, and resurrects his father Asar. Okay, so advocates of this position point to parallels between Jesus and the Greek gods Attis and Adonis, or the Egyptian god Horus and Osiris, but a deeper inspection shows the parallels are forced, and the resurrection account of Jesus bears little semblance to these mythological fables. It's a combination of the story of Heru and Asar. It's a combination of those. And you look at Gerald Massey, he goes through and lays out numerous similarities between Heru and Jesus as well, and the other crucified saviors also. That's why I read the book Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson, or the World's 16 Crucified Saviors. This goes on to say pagans did not believe in resurrection. One early church father in bodily resurrection never. One early church father said boldly, resurrection never crossed their mind. Um, the philosophers on Mars Hill mocked Paul for his. Okay, so this is a misunderstanding, because when you look at those other civilizations and things like this, they did have a concept of resurrection. They did have a concept of resurrection because their savior was born again each year, and their savior, their birthday was usually either on or be on or around December 25th. And they did have a concept of resurrection. In Egyptian mythology, Osiris never rose from the dead. He ruled the underworld and served as a living king of the dead. But Asar was resurrected. Yeah, he ruled the underworld, but he was still resurrected. Okay, he was his body was put back together. Okay, the 13 pieces were recovered. His body was put back together, and he's resurrected to rule the underworld. Okay, so he wasn't resurrected to walk on earth, but so what? This is where they got it from. In Egyptian mythology, Osiris never rose from the dead. He ruled the underworld and served as the living king of the dead. The claim that Horus died after a scorpion sting is simply incorrect. He only became ill and was nursed to health by his mother. In Greek mythology, the god Attis was not resurrected. His spirit entered a pine tree, hardly a reasonable parallel. The overwhelming historical evidence of Jesus' resurrection, in terms of eyewitness and firsthand contemporaneous accounts, is a completely different category than legends and fables and mythology. They're really stretching there. They're really stretching there. The overwhelming historical evidence. Where's your evidence? They're really stretching it. Where's your archaeological evidence? Would you read Christianity Before Christ by Dr. John G. Jackson? They're really stretching there. Okay, but there are similarities, and he lays them out here in this book. There are similarities. It's not exactly the same, but this is where they get this from, to create the story of Jesus Christ, born of a virgin birth on December 25th to the Virgin Mary. And then to take it even deeper, if you look at in the story of Asar and Aset, and Tony Browder deals with this in Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, page 95. Okay, if you look at this, and then I got to get out of here because I'm going to teach. We're going to teach a brief session of this class. How do you all like this type of information? You can go ahead and register for this online history class. It's a 12-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. So as soon as you register, you can start watching the content. You can join us in this class that I'm about to teach. We do this at our online school. It's not here on social media. Page 95 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, Tony Browder says, the story of Asar, Aset, and Heru is the first story in the recorded history of man of a holy royal family, the Trinity, Immaculate Conception, Virgin Birth, and Resurrection. Evidence of this Trinity is known to have existed in ancient Nubia as late as 3300 BCE, before the Common Era. As late as 3300 BCE, before the Common Era. Carved on the walls of the Temple of Luxor, circa 1380 BCE, are scenes which depict the following. You have the Annunciation, so the bottom portion here, the panel number 1, you have the Annunciation. The Neter Dahuti is shown announcing to the Virgin Aset the coming birth of Heru. This is the Annunciation. Okay. You have the Number two, you have the Immaculate Conception. The Neter Neph, Kneph, the Neter Neph, who represents the Holy Ghost, and the Neter Het Heru, or Hathor, are shown symbolically impregnating the Auset, who the Greeks called Isis, okay, by holding Ankhs, which is the symbol of the eternal symbol of life, to the nostril of the Virgin Mother to be. All right, this is the Immaculate Conception. Three, you have the Virgin Birth, which is the top panel here, the Virgin Birth. Auset is shown sitting on the birthing stool, and the newborn child is attended by midwives. Auset is shown sitting on the birthing stool, and the newborn child is attended by midwives. Number four, the adoration. Okay, the newborn Heru is portrayed receiving gifts from the three kings or the magi, while adored by a host of gods and men. Okay, you ever heard of the adoration? And this is where you get the three kings, the three wise men. But in the book of Malachi, it doesn't tell you how many wise men it was. Okay, and the three kings, the concept of the three kings, that comes from the three stars in Orion's belt, Orion the hunter, that constellation of Orion's belt, and the star Sirius, which is the brightest star in the east. The star Sirius is in the constellation of Canis Major, okay, which is the big dog, okay, Canis Major, the big dog, and that's the star Sirius, which is in that constellation. So you have the big dog and the little dog, Canis Major and Canis Minor, okay, in those constellations. I have that slide somewhere. That's in that slide is actually in my presentation dealing with the history of Christmas, the origins of Christmas. But anyway, okay, so very quickly here, if we look at, so they talk about the Houthi, right? If we look at this here and we see how the deities from the Neter from ancient Kemet influenced the deities from the Greeks and the Romans, we look at page 168 of Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization. They show how the Houthi becomes Hermes amongst the Greeks and Mercury amongst the Romans. Okay, but they talk about how the Houthi, the Neter of science, writing, measurement, divine articulation of speech, and medicine, holds in his hands two staffs with entwined snakes. One serpent wears the crown of Upper Kemet, the other wears the crown of Lower Kemet. The Houthi is referred to as Thoth by the Greeks. Okay, so you see the Houthi carrying two staffs with a snake wrapped around each staff, all right? And we know that the Houthi is going to be the one who delivers the Annunciation to the Virgin Auset. So then we have Hermes. Hermes and the books of Hermes are crucial to the teachings of Freemasonry as well. Okay, Hermes was the Greek equivalent of the Houthi. He is shown carrying a staff which has two entwined snakes. He is shown carrying a staff which has two entwined snakes. It was called the staff of Hermes. Okay. In Greek mythology, he was associated with wisdom, and the Hermetic sciences were named in his honor. Okay. But also, when you look at Freemasonry, the books of Hermes, or also referred to as Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes thrice great, are essential knowledge to those that practice Freemasonry or the Freemasons. Okay. Now, number three, you have Mercury. Now, we've all seen Mercury in cartoons, cartoons dealing with Roman mythology. We see Mercury amongst the Romans. Okay. Mercury is the Greek version of, it should be Roman version of Hermes and Dehuti, and he is similar in all aspects. The staff of Mercury carries, the staff that Mercury carries is called the caduceus, and it has been adopted as the universal symbol of medicine. Okay, so we see examples of the caduceus here, the Arizona Latin American Medical Association. We see the American Medical Association with a stick with a snake wrapped around it. We see the symbol for dentistry, all that. When you research this, the caduceus, this comes straight out of ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. But it goes even deeper than this, okay? Because Mercury is also a messenger god, okay? Mercury is a messenger. And in the story of, so if we look here at this, guide, it breaks down, where is it? Mercury, Venus, Mercury. Okay, so we see Dehuti, I have it highlighted, Dehuti, Hermes, Mercury, divine aspects of those three deities, messenger of the gods and god of science, messenger, right? So it's Dehuti who delivers the annunciation to the virgin all set that she is going to give birth to Heru. In the Christian tradition, it's the messenger angel Gabriel who delivers to the Virgin Mary that she's going to give birth to Yeshua. Okay, I say Yeshua because the letter J didn't exist. You can, if you take this back to when the Helios Biblos, or the Sun Book, or what you call the Holy Bible, was written, the letter J didn't exist. The English language didn't exist. So his name was Yeshua. Okay, so Gabriel does with Mary what Dehuti did with Osset. Where'd they get this stuff from? You have to Professor Kabahaya Wata Kamene says, to understand the existence of something, you must first understand the pre-existence of existence. To understand Christianity, you have to go back to the Nile Valley region of Africa, and you have to go back to ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt. This is where this comes from. Now, we've been taught to hate Africa. We've been taught to hate ancient Kemet. You deal with the false story of the Exodus. Okay, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. I dealt with this when I did my broke down presentation on dealing with the origins of Easter around Easter time. Okay, and I know many of our people are of the Christian persuasion. Okay, and as I explained to people, I'm not against people who are Christians. Okay, because the word Christ, which means anointed or anointed one, comes from Christos, which is Greek, which comes from the Kemetic karest, K-A-R-S-T, ka meaning spirit, rest meaning to rise. So you have to understand where all this comes from. That takes it back to ancient Kemet. We keep running away from who we are. To understand the existence of something, you must first understand the pre-existence of existence. If we look very briefly here at this article here from history.com, which deals with the Passover, okay? And this is at history.com's official website of the History Channel. Okay, this deals with the Passover, and the Passover deals with the murder of African children also. People don't want to talk about that, but in that area of the world that this is taking place, these were African people. Okay, so if you talk about killing the firstborn child under 2 years old, you ain't talking about killing white children. Okay, you're talking about killing African children. So if you read, this is from the History Channel, history.com. They have a ton of information. This is one of the sources we use. We use National Geographic, history.com. There's a ton of sources that we use in these classes that I teach. And I've been teaching this class since 2017. It has expanded exponentially. They talk about the Gregorian calendar, okay, right here. And we know the Gregorian calendar is a result of 1582, when Pope Gregory the 13th introduced, he introduced the Gregorian calendar, and that is a result of the Third Council of Trent of about 1582, the Third Council of Trent. All right, but if we look at And this goes through and explains why the Gregorian calendar was created, and the concern Pope Gregory because this concerned Pope Gregory because it meant that Easter, traditionally observed on March 21st, fell further away from the spring equinox or the vernal equinox. Vernal is Latin for spring. With each passing year. Also, when you look at the constellation of Virgo, the zodiac symbols, the zodiac sign, and the constellation of Virgo. Virgo in Latin means virgin. Virgo in Latin means virgin. All this stuff is connected. It goes through various cultures, but it still maintains a lot of its original essence. All of this connected. Okay, so read this here. They go through and break this down. They explain leap years like this, and this was a result of the Third Council of Trent in 1582, when Pope Gregory XIII introduced his Gregorian calendar. Europe had adhered to the calendar, first implemented by Julius Caesar in 46 BC. As I said, they were using the Julian calendar before the Gregorian calendar was introduced. Since the Roman emperor's system miscalculated the length of the solar year by 11 minutes, the calendar had since fallen out of sync with the season. So they were celebrating Easter further and further away from the vernal equinox as time went on, going from 46 BC up until the 1500s. They were celebrating Easter further and further away from the vernal equinox, which is why they had to recalculate, which is why they had to come out with a new new calendar, which was more accurate, and Easter would fall closer to the vernal equinox. So Easter is celebrated on the first Sunday following the first full moon following the vernal equinox. When Easter is celebrated is based upon astronomy. Okay. 6 things you may not know about the Gregorian calendar. This is at history.com. So a lot of this they don't teach you in church. Some churches may, but a lot of churches, they run away from stuff like this. You have to ask them why. We created astronomy. Why are we running away from what we created? Okay, so if you scroll down the article Passover, you scroll down and they talk about Moses and all this stuff you see in the movie 10 Commandments with Yul Brynner and all this stuff. Okay. Now there's a different, okay. Let me give my disclaimer once again. Okay, first of all, we have to understand that world history and religious literature are two entirely different things. World history and religious literature are two entirely different things. World history is in world history books. Okay? World history is in world history books. Religious literature is in religious literature books. All right. When you look at religious literature, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because, where's my Bible? Right here. New King James Version. This is a study Bible. I have a devotional Bible in the other room. See, you got to see people sit up in church, amen, and amen comes from Ancient Kemet also. There's a whole nother conversation. See, the difference between a study Bible and a devotional Bible. I have a devotional Bible, King James devotional Bible. That's about 450 pages. My new King James study Bible, this is 2,000 pages. And the study Bible has additional information, annotations, word definitions, things like this. The study Bible, this is what when you go to Bible study class, this is what you take the Bible study class. You don't take a devotional Bible. You have to get a study Bible. But you have to understand the difference between the two. Okay? If we read from a study Bible, okay, as opposed to just listening to what the pastor says and just hallelujah and praising God, things like this. If you actually research this is why you need a study Bible. The study Bible also came with a CD-ROM as well. It came with a CD-ROM, comes with maps, all this stuff in the back of the book, comes with maps, everything. And it came with a CD-ROM also. I bought this, years ago. When did I get this? April 5th, 2009. That's when I got this. So, it came with a CD-ROM. This is for studying. Okay. That's the difference. We all need to, if you read the Bible, you need to get a study Bible. This was $40 when I got it. I got this from Borders Bookstore. It was $39.99 when I got the book. Okay. It was $39.99 when I got the book in 2009. You probably get it cheaper on Amazon or something more. First check with your local African-American bookstore. All right. But we have to understand the difference. Because if we understood the difference between a study Bible and a devotional Bible, it'll clear up a whole lot of confusion. Number one, world history is in religious literature. World history is in world history books. Okay. You ever wonder why, when you go to historical museums, like museums that deal with world history, okay, and they deal with ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, they deal with China, they deal with they may have some history dealing with Mesopotamia and things like this. You ever wonder why, when you go to world with like historical museums, especially dealing with ancient history, you don't see biblical characters in like ancient museums, world history museums? Generally speaking, they may have a biblical section, which is probably going to be rare and strange. But if they have the biblical section, most of what they're going to say is according to the Bible. According to the Bible, it says this. According to the Bible, Moses did this. Notice in the Bible, they don't talk about the years that any of this stuff happened in the original text. I'm not talking about the annotations. I'm not talking about the notes. In the original text of the Bible, in the 66 books in the original text, notice they don't talk about the years that any of this stuff happened. So they didn't have calendars when the Helios Biblos was written. So this article dealing with the Passover goes through and talks about the 10 plagues. Talks about when Pharaoh, doesn't say which Pharaoh. I don't think they give the name of the Pharaoh. Maybe they do, but usually when they talk about Pharaoh, they don't say which name. Pharaoh is a title, not a name. They go through and talk about the story of Moses and all of this, right? And they talk about the Jews being in Egypt and everything, okay? But then they go through, they get past what's in the Helios Biblos, the Sun Book, the Bible, what you're taught in Sunday school, or what we were taught in catechism school when I was a Catholic, because I was Catholic till I was 13. So we went to catechism school on Saturdays, taught by the white nuns, and they were showing us children's books, that taught about the Bible, and all the people in the Bible they showed were white people. They showed us Moses is white, and Mary is white, and Jesus is white, and Joseph is white, and the 12 disciples is white, all that. It was white nuns showing us white images in the Bible and showing us how holy and how all these people are to be revered. Okay, it's nothing about African people. But anyway, it says for centuries. Now, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. I'm gonna post the link right here. You can read this for yourself. Not attacking anybody's religion. What we should be talking about is how African people, African history, and African spirituality has been attacked. That's what we should be talking about. Okay, so let's look at this here. Questions. They have this section here, the History Channel, history.com, official website of the History Channel. These are Europeans telling you this, what I'm about to share with you. It goes through and says questions of historical accuracy. For centuries, FOR, for centuries, scholars have been debating the details and historical merit of the events commemorated during the Passover holiday. Despite numerous attempts, historians and archaeologists have failed to corroborate the tale of the Jews' enslavement in and mass exodus from Egypt. Historians of different races, archaeologists of different races have failed to corroborate the tale, T-A-L-E, of the Jews' enslavement in and mass exodus from Egypt. Because it's supposed to be about 2 million of them in total leaving Egypt, and it said that they wandered in the desert for 40 years. Okay, number one, if you have a mass exodus like this from a country, is going to leave an ecological footprint. You don't have millions of people that just disappear and there's no evidence of them. There's still going to be archaeological evidence there to this day. You're going to have a massive fluctuations in irrigation, agriculture, things like this. It's going to throw off the ecology. You got 2 million people. Then it said that they wandered in the desert for 40 years. What did 2 million people eat in the desert for 40 years? What did 2 million people eat in the desert for 40 years? Where did 2 million people get water from in the desert for 40 years? Then, okay, let's continue here. Although the ancient Egyptians kept thorough records, no mention is made of an Israelite community within their midst or any calamities resembling the 10 biblical plagues. There is also no evidence of large encampments in the Sinai Peninsula, the fabled site of the Jews wandering, or any sudden fluctuation in Israel's archaeological record that would indicate the departure and return of a large population. It indicate that you leave archaeological footprints. You leave ecological footprints. You don't have hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people leaving a society, a mass exodus, and then they arrive in another society and there's no evidence of that. That doesn't happen. What happens in literature, but doesn't happen for real. A handful of scholars, including century Jewish historian Josephus, have suggested a link between the Israelites and the Hyksos, the Shepherd Kings, a mysterious Semitic people, possibly from Canaan, who controlled Lower Egypt for more than 100 years before their expulsion during the 16th century BC. Most modern academics, however, have dismissed this theory due to chronological context and a lack of similarity between the two cultures. Okay, read the rest of this here. Now, this is the History Channel telling you this. I would encourage you to take this to your pastor or take this to Bible study class and ask them some questions, not to challenge people, but should we study the Bible in Bible study class? Shouldn't we study the Bible? But but if you're going to say that this actually happened, then you're trying to say that it's world history. Well, where's your evidence? Because when you deal with world history, there's archaeological evidence. You don't have 2 million people who exit a country, a nation, and then go into another country, a nation, and it doesn't leave behind archaeological evidence. That doesn't happen. All right. So, and then, now this one right here, this will really knock people out. So, we talked about Asar Aset-Heru, Greece called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. How many people know that in 1949, when Dr. King was at Crozier Theological Seminary, he wrote a paper dealing with the influence on Christianity coming from the mystery systems and the mystery religions. But how many people knew about this? There's a we talk about this in the class, and since we're on this topic, I'm just going to bring this up. Pull this up here. It's called The Influence of the Mystery Religions on Christianity. This is written by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., same Dr. King that during Dr. King Day, oftentimes in the media, they lie to us about the legacy of Dr. King. Dr. King was a revolutionary whose legacy is grossly distorted. At Stanford University online, they have the King Institute, Stanford University. So they have a lot of his papers there and things like this that he wrote. The Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute. 1949 and 1950, November 29th, 1949 to February 15th, 1950, around that time. Dr. King was at Crozier Theological Seminary in Boston. He wrote a paper dealing with the influence of the mystery religions on Christianity. The influence of the mystery religions on Christianity. And he goes through and talks about the influence of Osiris and Isis. The influence of Osiris and Isis, who are Asar and Auset. Talks about the influence of the cult of Sybil and Attis as well. Dr. King was deep, trying to tell people. Dr. King wasn't no punk. Dr. King was deep. Dr. King studied history. Dr. King kept abreast of the developments on the continent of Africa and the African liberation movement. In 1957, when Ghana won its independence, Dr. King went to Ghana for a celebration, and he went to Ghana and met Kwame Nkrumah. And each year on the anniversary of Ghana's independence, he would go back to Ghana. Dr. King had a deep respect for Africa and African history and the African liberation movement. So very briefly here, it says that the Egyptian mysteries of Isis and Osiris exerted considerable influence upon early Christianity. This is Dr. King writing. These two great Egyptian deities whose worship passed into Europe were revered not only in Rome, but in many other centers where Christian communities were growing up. Osiris and Isis, so the legend runs, were at one and the same time brother and sister, husband and wife. He's correct. But Osiris was murdered, his coffin body being thrown into the Nile, and shortly afterwards, the widowed and exiled Isis gave birth to a son, Horus, or Heru. The Greeks called him Horus. Meanwhile, the coffin was washed up on the Syrian coast and became miraculously lodged in the trunk of a tree. This tree afterwards chanced to be cut down and made into a pillar in the place at Byblos. Okay. Now, Byblos is the Phoenician capital where the early Christians go to get the papyrus to write the Bible or the Helios Byblos, okay, or Bublos, all right. Ancient city, Lebanon. We'll look at this briefly here. Then I got to jump off teacher's class. Okay, who still needs to register for this 12-week online history class? Teach Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history. This is just a brief overview of the type of information we deal with in the class, because I'm gonna get wrapped up in this session here and forget to teach the class. This is what I do. Okay, so if we look at this here, this tree afterwards chanced to be cut down and made into a pillar in the palace at Bublos, and there Isis at length found it. Now, after recovering Osiris or Asar's dismembered body, Isis restored him to life and installed him as king in the netherworld, the underworld. Meanwhile, Horus, because he takes the position as ruler of the underworld after Horus, Heru, avenges the death of his father Asar by killing his brother Set. Okay, now meanwhile, Heru, having grown to manhood, reigned on earth later becoming the third person of this great Egyptian trinity. Now, this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. writing this. He wrote this in 1949. In the records of both Herodotus and Plutarch, we find that there was a festival held each year in Egypt, Kemet, celebrating the resurrection of Osiris. While Herodotus fails to give a date for this festival, Plutarch says that it lasted 4 days, giving the date as the 17th day of the Egyptian month Hathor, which was Het Heru, the deity Het Heru. The Greeks called it Hathor, which according to the Alexandrian calendar used by him corresponded to November 13th. Other Egyptian records speak of another feast in honor of all the dead when such lamps were lit, which was held about November 8th. It is interesting to note that the Christian feast of All Souls in honor of the dead. Okay, so this deals with All Souls Day and All Hallows Eve. That deals with the origins of Halloween. Okay, it is interesting to note that the Christian feast of All Souls in honor of the dead likewise falls at the beginning of November. Okay, so you have October 31st and November 1st, where the boundaries between the living and the dead become blurred. Okay, according to the Europeans, like the Celtics and things like this. They believe that between October 31st and November 1st, the boundaries between the living world and the spiritual world became blurred. Okay, it is interesting to note that the Christian feast of All Souls in honor of the dead likewise falls at the beginning of November, and in many countries, lamps and candles are burned all night on that occasion. There seems little doubt that this custom was identical with the Egyptian festival. The festival of All Saints, which is held one day before that of All Souls, All Saints Day, All Souls Day. The festival of All Saints, which is held one day before that of All Souls, is also probably identical with it in origin. This still stands as a festival in the Christian calendar, and thus the Christians unconsciously perpetuate the worship of Osiris in modern times. However, this is not the only point at which the religion of Osiris and Isis exerted influence on Christianity. There can hardly be any doubt that the myths of Isis had a direct bearing. This is why I get infuriated. I go to Dr. King Day celebrations and I hear people who mean well. I know they have good heart, they mean well, but I can tell by the information they put forth about Dr. King, they've never read any of Dr. King's writings. They never read any of the 5 books that Dr. King wrote. This is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. writing this, not Dr. Richard King, Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King goes on to say, there can hardly be any doubt that the myth of Isis had a direct bearing on the elevation of Mary, the mother of Yeshua or Jesus, to the lofty position that she holds in Roman Catholic theology. As is commonly known, Isis had 2 capacities with which her worshipers warmly commended her for. Firstly, she was pictured as the Lady of Sorrows, weeping for the dead Osiris. And secondly, she was commended as the divine mother, nursing her infant son Horus. Former capacity, she was identified with the great mother goddess Demeter, Demeter, whose mourning for Persephone, Persone, Phone, I should say, was the main feature in the Eleusinian mysteries. In the latter capacity, Isis was represented in tens of thousands of statuettes and paintings holding the divine child in her arms. This is where you get the Black Madonna Child from, that was worshipped all throughout Europe before you had the colonized version or the decolorized version of the white Mary and Jesus. This is what Dr. King's breaking down. In the latter capacity, Isis or Aset was represented in tens of thousands of statuettes and paintings holding the divine child in her arms. Now, when Christianity triumphed, we find that these same paintings and figures became those of the Madonna and Child with little or no difference. Well, the difference was they became white. He's being modest. The difference was they went from black to white. They went from African to European. In fact, archaeologists are often left in confusion in attempting to distinguish the one from the other. Well, the way you distinguish one from the other is the white ones are the ones Europeans created. That's how you distinguish ones from the others. The white ones are the ones Europeans created, because Europeans were worshiping African people. And a lot of their deities were African. Things like this. When you study Greek mythology, it tells you that Zeus came from Ethiopia. Zeus, who was the king of the gods in Greek mythology, it tells you Zeus came from Ethiopia. Okay, read this full paper here. This is by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The I Have a Dream, Dr. King. This is who wrote this. Okay, this is at Stanford University's the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute. They have one of his papers there that you can read, because I listen what people say about Dr. King. I tell they have not studied Dr. King. They're just going by just simple Simon nonsense they see in the media. I don't know where they're getting this nonsense from. The influence of the mystery religions on Christianity. Dr. King wrote this in 1949. The influence of the mystery religions on Christianity. Okay, so we take it to this right here. All right, Asar, Aset, and Heru. But we deal with the Black Madonna and Child, which comes from Asar, Aset, and Heru. Okay, and the Black Madonna, the statues of the Black Madonna and Child all throughout Europe that is still there today. As you have a rise in European powers as they're coming out of the Dark Ages, as you come out of the Dark Ages in the 1300s, going into the late 1300s, because you had the Black Death, the bubonic plague, 1347 to 1400. So as they're coming out of the Dark Ages, the early 1400s, and they start to conquer people's lands, and they start to explore and colonize, you're going to have a rise in European powers. You start having a rise in the dominance of the European phenotype as becoming the desired phenotype, as being projected in imagery, in statues, in paintings. Okay, and you have the decolorized version. So it goes from being the Black Madonna and Child to just the Madonna and Child, and you have the decolorized version of it. All right, but when we look at let's see, do I have it here? Okay, so if we look at page 90 or 91, what is it, 90 or 91 of Runoko Rashidi's book, Black Star, the African Presence in Early Europe. And this is a book we use in the class, 90 and 91. He has pictures of statues of the Black Madonna and Child that he took in Switzerland, Poland, statues and paintings that he took in Switzerland, Poland, Spain, and Luxembourg City, Luxembourg. Okay, they were worshiping African people. They were worshiping African people. They had, I dare say it, that many Europeans had more respect for the African woman than many African Americans have today for the African American woman. They were showing African people as their savior before you have the rise of white supremacy. Okay, before, but when the Moors go in 711 AD, this is what they have, these statues. The Moors didn't bring statues of the Black Madonna Child; they were already there, which comes from Asar, Aset, and Heru, who the Greeks called Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Dr. King lays out in his paper the influence on Christianity from the mystery religions. So here, page 89, Renoco shows painting in Moscow, the Kremlin in Moscow, Black Madonna Child. This statue here in Montserrat, Spain. You got this. Then the Black Virgin of Paris, Paris, France. Okay. Our Lady of the Pillar, Gothic Cathedral in France, Chartres, France. This is all throughout Europe. Then when you deal with Para-Isidus, the Grove of Isis, and I'm going to see if I can find this quickly here. This ties into Notre Dame. So Notre Dame means Our Lady. I'm going to see if I can find this quickly here. Okay, this is some stuff from Browder. Okay, the African influence. Okay, so this is from brownwatch.com. It deals with let me see. I want to find this. Okay, there's some stuff from Browder that I want to find right quick. Here. Just 1 second. Some of this information came out when Notre Dame Cathedral caught on fire. Let me see if I can find this right quick. Hold on. No, that's not what I want. So basically, Notre Dame means Our Lady, and the Notre Dame Cathedral was built on the remains of 2 temples. One of them was dedicated to Isis. Let's see here, the citation that I want for this. I can't find it. Let me see. I have that bookmarked in Firefox. I had some articles on that bookmark, but I have to go deep and find that information. When you search for it, they show the terrorist organization. I'm going to do a goddess Isis, not, not the terrorist organization. We look at this article here from CNN. Not of articles. I'm trying to. I had one CNN that talked about how Notre Dame was built on remains of a temple dedicated to Isis. But if we look at this right here, okay, this is from CNN.com. Ancient sarcophagus found under Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, March 16th, 2022. So it came out this year. Ancient sarcophagus. Okay, those are the painted coffins. Ancient sarcophagus. All right, they're trying to sell something. Ancient sarcophagus found under Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Okay, so this was written by Reuters. It's one of the main news wires, Reuters, and it was picked up by CNN. Archaeologists have found an ancient lead sarcophagus under Notre Dame Cathedral, along with fragments of a rude screen, offering a new insight into the history of the building, which is currently under reconstruction after a devastating fire in 2019. Notre Dame, which dates back to the 12th century AD, commissioned the excavation works inside the cathedral as a precautionary measure before the installation of a scaffolding needed to restore a 100-meter high wooden roof ridge. Okay. Now, the floor of the transcript crossing has revealed remains of remarkable scientific quality. The excavation site lies under a stony layer that dates from the 18th century, but some locals go back as far as the 14th century, and some even the early 13th century, the culture ministry said. Archaeologists say the lead sarcophagus probably belonged to a high dignitary and said it could date back to the 14th century, which it confirmed would make it a spectacular find. Now, the excavation also revealed a pit immediately below the cathedral, which was likely to have been made around 1230 AD when Notre Dame, one of the oldest examples of French Gothic, was under construction. Um, let me see. Let me check something here. Okay. I gotta find my sources on that. I have articles on that. I just gotta have to find where they are. You know what? Let me check Britannica. Let me try to close out some of these ads here. Okay, they have information on Notre Dame, Encyclopedia Britannica's website also. Notre Dame Cathedral. The cathedral was initiated by Maurice de Sully, Bishop of Paris, who about 1160 AD conceived the idea of converting into a single building, larger scale, the ruins of two earlier basilicas. One of those was a temple dedicated to Isis. The foundation stone was laid by Pope Alexander III in 1163, and the higher altar was consecrated in 1189. Let's see here. If we look at this, let me look at this source here. Okay. Not that familiar with that. I'll have to find it later. All right. So, hey, you can join us. You can register for this 10-week online class. We'll post a link here. We have the bundle pack. So you get both of my classes for $100. It's $130. This class is on sale, $60 regularly, $130. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. How do you all like this type of information? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like. So you can register for it right now. I'm about to jump off and teach a brief session of this class. Now, as soon as you register, we have about 12 sessions that, well, it's not 12. We have 10 sessions already archived that you can watch, okay? And we do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire class, all right? Then on normally on Sundays, the class I teach is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. And we deal with history from 1803 with the Louisiana Purchase and the Haitian Revolution through to the Civil War, Reconstruction, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement. We have both classes on sale for $100. So you click right here and register for both classes. Register here for both classes. And it takes you here, summer bundle pack. It's on sale $100. It's over $300 value that you get. All right. And those in the Dayton, Ohio area, I'll be at the Dayton African American Festival, African American Cultural Festival, Saturday, August 20th through Sunday, August 21st. Okay. So when you support the African History Network, you register for the classes, you support us through Cash App or PayPal. That helps cover expenses because it's not free. I have to pay for my vendor booth. I got to pay to get there. I have to rent a car. You should have expenses to get there. So I'll be a vendor there. Okay. So you all can come check me out at my vendor booth also. All right. And I'll be doing presentations at my vendor booth. We'll have my DVD lectures there. Let me see. I'm trying to find the website. Where is it here? Okay, here's their website, and they're on Facebook also. They get about on average 13,000 people coming out over those 2 days to the festival. It's a free festival. All right. It's not free to be a vendor, but it's a free festival. And they're going to have everything. Michelle is performing this year also. So the website is daacf.com, daacf.com. It's an African American Cultural Festival. This is their website, 16th Annual Dayton, Ohio African American Cultural Festival. Um, so they're going to have community awards. They have a fashion show, storytelling. They have African dance, live music. They have R&B, hip hop, all different types of things like that. Kids activities, stilt walkers, vendors, and more. The Dayton, let's see, 16th annual Dayton African American Cultural Festival, live music, African drumming, gospel, jazz, R&B, blues, hip hop, dancers, live performances, and more. The Dayton African American Cultural Festival, Inc. provides a space for people to gather to celebrate the richness of the African American cultural and uplift the communal family through activities that promote culture, art, education, and health awareness. So Saturday, August 20th, 2022, it's 12 noon to 8 p.m. It's at Island Metro Park, 101 East Helena Street in Dayton, Ohio. Okay, they have another flyer here. We have the flyers on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and my personal page, Michael Imhotep. Sunday, August 21st, 12 noon to 6 p.m., same location. The annual Dayton African American Cultural Festival is a 2-day citywide family event to bring the richness of African American experience in the Dayton and surrounding communities. The Dayton African American Cultural Festival hosts many different cultural experiences: African Village, drumming, storytelling, arts pavilion of paintings, visual displays, authors and literature, education, job center, Dayton High School alumni directories, music that have live R&B, gospel, hip hop, jazz, blues performances. All right. Then they have visit the authentic African village. Okay, they have all this there. All right. So check this out. This is from previous year or years. This festival. So we'll have information on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. When I get there and find out where my booth is, get my booth set up because I have a tent. I had to set up my booth, all that stuff. When I get there and set it up, we'll post on our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I'll post where I'm located. So those in the surrounding area, those in Michigan, those in Wisconsin, those in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, you can all come to this 2-day festival. It's free. Bring the family and come check me out my vendor booth as well. All right. If you want to support the African History Network and what we do, and also this will help cover expenses of running the African History Network, and when I have to travel, like going to Dayton, Ohio, because I have to rent a car as well to do all this. There's a number of expenses. I've already paid for my vendor booth, but I just got to cover other expenses. You can support us, one, through registering for the online classes, 2, through Cash App or PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Also through our through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App. And we have the information on the homepage of our website. When you go to Cash App, when you go to our Cash App account, our official account, $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. Okay. So we have the link here on our website, Cash App. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. That's not us. Ours is $ the AHN show, SHOW. When you go to it, it says Michael and shows my picture there. I'm trying to get these other fake African History Network Cash App accounts shut down. And then if you click on the link, it takes you here. It says Michael. This is ours. You can scan the barcode. Okay, that's our official Cash App account. So that helps us keep doing the research. It helps when we have to travel. You can scan this right now with your phone, and you can support us through Cash App, okay? Because this helps us keep doing the research, finance the radio show, um, finance the research. Even when I teach the online classes, I have to pay. There are two digital platforms that I teach the online classes for, so I have to pay for those each month, pay for the subscriptions to the news outlets that I use as well. Okay, so we definitely appreciate the support. All right. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's corrects wrong behaviors, not over till we win, Wakanda forever. And you can register for the classes. We'll talk to you next time. I'm about to jump on and teach an abbreviated class. As soon as you register, you can watch the previous sessions of this course that I've taught also. All right, remember, right now it's correct wrong behaviors, not over till we win.